So I want to make a series based on what makes a great boss. Not just great boss, but a one that is almost perfect. Perfect in a way that just makes you say that was but not just one of the best bosses I've ever faced, a perfect boss. In this series I'm looking for the sort of the perfect boss. And the first case I want to look at is first case as in like the first study of a perfect boss would be Nightmare King Grimm from Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight has many great bosses. With fair and close quarters combat, with a risk and reward system between your health and spells coming from the same source. And it all culminates into a sort of a Dark Souls sort of story that says the way things happen don't really change, but there are different endings. One of the but that's not here or there based on Grimm. You see, trope. There's this called the trope, and in charge is Trope Grimm. Trope Grimm wants the fires of pretty much destroyed civilizations, and you call him by going to the Howling Cliffs and going to a hidden area. Once you light the flame, you go back to Dirtmouth and realize that things have changed. There is a bunch of tents and around it with pink reddish flames, almost a neon. And you go inside and meet Trope Grimm. He gives you a task of gathering the flames of this ruined city, and he says to pretty much destroy these things and bring them back, infused within the charm he gives you called the Grimm Child. Now, I may have butchered that lore, but it's the whole point is that you must go find them with the help of this Grimm Child charm that you've been given. The Grimm Child charm takes 2 slots of your charm notches, which means you have to make room for it. And the first time, it's pretty useless. All it does is say it just points out these flame markers on your map and says, yeah, they're here. And you go get them, they're pretty easy to defeat, and you bring them back, and he gives you a new enemies to fight at different areas. These ones are much stronger, but so is your Grimm Child. It actually attacks back, but doesn't do enough damage to really warrant a 2 charm notches, really. You see, the Grimm Child is more of a hindrance than it is a help. Even though it leads you and attacks a bit, it doesn't do enough damage to warrant those things. But then lies this sort of ingenious of this Grimm Child charm is that it's meant to sort of take up space in your charm notches, so you can't depend on your same strategies all the time. It is best to face Trope Grimm when you think you have upgraded probably to your maximum, but if you're good enough, you can face him as soon as you get the Dream Nail. Now to one of the really still a good boss, just not as good as Nightmare King Grimm, is the Trope Grimm fight. The Trope Grimm fight is probably one of the best fights in the game, and he does the same attacks as his underlings do. For example, they will dive and disappear, and Trope Grimm does the same sort of thing, just in the more limited scope because of the limited room he gives you. He does these fireball attacks. and like the same thing as his subordinates do, but in a different fashion. He has probably 4 different attacks as Trope Grimm. The He will appear on the ground, attack forward, and jump into the air and burst into flames. These flames are always going to be the same place based on where he is. And all you do is stand in between them. Another attack he uses is he will create spikes from the ground while he is on the ground. Then, like an homage to Dracula probably from Castlevania, he'll fire bats from his cape. Fire bats, in fact. And he'll fire 3 of these, and you can easily get over them, or whatever how you do it. Then one of the other attacks will appear from above and dive, and then based on where you were, he will rush in that direction, sort of like a zigzag. If you are behind him, he will zigzag your way. If you're not behind him, then he will go in that direction, creating a little arc. Now, the thing is, though, in between these attacks, he disappears and reappears within probably a second or so, and he'll do one of these 4 attacks, which means you have to stay on your toes all the time. Now you're thinking, like, how am I supposed to, since, well, if you know anything about Hollow Knight, it takes a while to heal. Well, that becomes a problem. If he's just going everywhere, disappearing quickly and reappearing quickly and attacking, well, there's a few caveats to help you. There's a caveat to help you out, because this boss will take time to, when he takes enough damage, he will turn into a bunch of bats, and one of them being him, and you have to find him. He's the only one that has a face, pretty much. And so you have 2 choices. Do you heal, or if you're well enough into the fight, you can always go for more damage and ending the fight much quicker. Now I must tell you, though, it is a bit of an endurance fight facing Trope Grimm. So you need to be if you're sorry if I repeated myself. I'm not good at public speaking. I'm repeating my thoughts are going faster than my voice. Wish I could edit this out, but I can't. What happens is that when you damage him, you end the fight faster, which makes it not last as long, but it's still a long battle. And the other thing he can do when he's taken enough damage is to burst into a giant ball, and then all these fireballs will come out, and you have a couple of choices. You either you don't have any choices. I lie. He will spit out a bunch of fireballs at you in a bunch of patterns, but their patterns are directed into your position on either each side you're at, and you have to dodge them on either jumping or standing still. And these come at you in for about 10 seconds or so. You can't really hit them, and you can't really approach them. If you do, your nail will be deflected, but spells still do work. So you can, if you have enough soul in your inventory, you can just blast them with a spell and then continue to dodge, if you have the time, because you are put under a lot of pressure during this time. And with all things combined, it can be a tough task to do it on your first try, second, or even third. But Trope Grimm is probably too easy for probably for veterans. For someone who's beginning, it seems like an impossible task. But trust me, you can do it with enough practice. He's right there at Dirtmouth. It doesn't take that long to get to him. So after the fight, he gives you actually a very good reward. It's a charm notch, which will help you mitigate the what he gives you Grimchild for. And it's like, oh good, no, the fight's over. Well, it's not. He still has one more task for you to do. To face the strongest among his trope group. These guys do the teleport, the fireballs, and they do the one more called the fire pillars. The fire pillars and all other damage that they do 2 mask of damage. And you need to get used to that. Because, like before, these reflect what Grimm does later. So you had to get used to the fire pillars the way that they're presented by the trope. So, when you get back to Grimm, you'll see he's not there. But if you keep going, you'll learn that he is asleep. And if you have a strong enough nail, I mean a strong enough dream nail, the one to go into the dreams of demigods and stuff like that, pretty much. You can go into the Nightmare King Grimm fight. Really the best fight in the game. It is perfect in its difficulty. It's the way he attacks, the way he sets up his attacks, the tells. You know, it's just that all of it combined to make it very tough, but it is very fair. It's not something that you can be upset about it, but I can't be mad at the game for it. It's all my fault. I'm the one who screwed up, not the game. And so what happens is that in the dream version, he takes 2 masks away for every time he hits you. You're like, okay, I'll just do what I did before with Trope Grimm, except he takes 2 away. That shouldn't be too bad. Well, here's the thing. He's got a brand new attack. And it's the Fire Pillars, where he stands and just does the Fire Pillar before, but in a set pattern, which you can take advantage of actually at the end of it. You can about hit him twice, and then if you have the fast heal charm, you can heal 1 mask, and that, or you can damage him with a spell. Not only that, he sends instead of the 3 bats, he sends 4 at different altitudes, and they kind of home toward you. So that's hard. And when he does the bat attack, you can't pogo on him. Pogo being that when you attack downwards on an enemy, and then you keep doing it, and you bounce off of them like a pogo stick, which is kind of like what Scrooge McDuck does or Shovel Knight does. Except it has to be something that you do instead of just attack down. You know, it has to be consistent. There's a technique to it. You can't do that because there's a fire pillar when he does his bat, so you can't take advantage of that. You have to dodge them in some way or fashion. Not only that, the dive attack he does where he zigzag has a fiery trail behind him, and that can really kind of mess you up on your attack patterns, because you may not want to go for it if you're not confident you're going to hit it. When he also, every single attack he does is a lot faster, like the one where he goes up and does his fire spread attack. It's a lot faster. a lot faster. and and not only that, the fire comes down faster. So it's really kind of tough to know where to stand when it changes the pattern of the way the fire comes down too. Like it's almost like odds and evens. Like the fire is next to you on Trope, but then on Nightmare King Grimm, it can be where you are. You know, it's just it's almost like there's an opposite way to do it. You know, it's weird. It doesn't appear in the same place twice. And not only that, when he takes enough damage, he still does the fireball attack that swarms all over the place, except now it's faster. And if you get hit, you still take that 2 mass damage. It doesn't matter how big or small the attack is. Unless you bump into him. But still, that's not advisable either. You're probably saying, well, at least he'll turn into bat so he takes enough damage. That's true. But it's a lot less time. Like in the Trope version, he probably stays up there for about 3 seconds, and this one is probably 1. You don't get enough time. You probably get enough time to hit him once with your nail, and then he's back, giving you less time to heal and less time to think. All this culminates into the fair challenge because it's all based around movement, attack windows, and tells that you just have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to practice. You have to do it. It's tough, very tough. It took me about a month to do it. Probably not in real time, but again, like you practice it every day for about an hour, and it's like for a month, and yeah, it can feel like that. But I tell you, it's probably one of the best bosses that's ever been put in a video game because of what it feels like to face him. It has this really cool thing about him. And I could probably... It's kind of funny because it sounds like all this is negative. But no, it just culminates in a fight that makes you feel accomplished when you actually do it. The reward is for facing him is that you get a heightened version of the Grimm Child, but that's not really the point. The point is that the challenge itself is, and defeating it is the reward. You kind of have to expect that from Hollow Knight, because if you don't, then you're going to be disappointed when you do something. Because mostly it's the challenge that makes you go on, that makes you want to do it again. And the fair challenge is that nothing can be not overcome with enough perseverance. And when it comes to 2D combat, he kind of has it all. Like, there's not really a big flaw with him, because each attack has its own counter, and if you know what you're doing, it's not that bad. So yeah, you just have to keep trying, and believe it or not, there's bosses tougher than him, and he's just eats the benchmark of 2D combat. And this is probably the golden standard, or even the platinum standard, for optional bosses that are just fair. And then, well, probably next time, I'll try something 3D. Probably something a little more darker than anything else. Toodles.